2 weeks from today, the country's top Republicans are meeting in Milwaukee for the first presidential primary debate for the 2024 election. Now, one of the big questions is who's in and who's out. It's not just guesswork, as political reporter Will Keneally joins us to explain. Will?
Eric, that's right. It's actually a pretty scientific process to determine who's in and who's out of this first presidential debate. The Republican National Committee that's coordinating it has released a series of criteria, including things like fundraising numbers and polling.
In recent years, we've seen this explosion of the number of presidential candidates.
With so many voices, it can be hard to cut through the noise. You have to whittle it down somehow.
If that risks having so many people on the debate stage that the debate is barely manageable, and many of them get just a few seconds, really, to present their case.
So the RNC lays out its criteria like this. You have to poll at least 800 likely Republican voters. Now, that can be live interviews or online or text messages. Now, none of the polls can come from the campaigns themselves. Barring that, any candidate that gets at least 1% in 3 national polls or 2 national polls and 1 early state poll like Iowa, they're in the debate. But there's more.
I think that's probably the area that pollsters might have raised their eyebrows a little bit about.
The RNC also requires polls put their presidential preference questions early, fearing that having them later in the poll could introduce bias.
Within the profession, there are different views about whether you should ask the vote choice at the very early steps of the survey or ask them somewhat later. In our Wisconsin survey, we asked job approval of the president and the governor and favorability to several candidates, and then we asked the vote choice. I'm not sure that that would meet their criteria.
So on top of that word choice, Franklin says that the sheer size of his poll alone would also not allow him to qualify. He says he'd need to sample essentially twice the number of Republicans that he already does in his normal sample to have his poll qualify. And right now, there are 8 Republicans eligible for this debate coming up later this month. Reporting from the Capitol, Will Keneally, News 3 Now.